Today we are going to find out how iPhone 6 touch circuit works. First, let's take a look at the main components on the touch circuit. U2402 touchscreen driving IC. It works to drive these driving control lines of the touchscreen and receive feedback signals from sensing lines of touchscreen. After being processed by the touchscreen driving IC, these signals will then be sent to the touchscreen controller IC. U2401 touchscreen controller IC. It works to process signals from the touchscreen driving IC and calculate the specific touch position. Corresponding action of the touch position is also explained later. U0201 CPU. It is responsible for overall control of the touch circuit and communication with the touch controller IC via SPI bus. U1202 PMU. It is responsible for power supply to the touch circuit. J2401 touchscreen connector. It connects the touch screen with touch control circuit. Now let's find out how iPhone 6 touch circuit really works. Voltage, clock signal, reset signal, and driving signal are indispensable to ensure normal working of the touch circuit. Step 1. Working voltage needed is listed as follows. 1. The 5.1 volts power supply provided by Display Boost IC U1501 for the touchscreen controller IC U2401. 2. The 1.8 volts power supply provided by PMU for U2401. 3. One rail of plus 5.7 volts power supply and one rail of minus 5.7 volts power supply provided by Display Boost IC for touchscreen driving IC U2402. 4. The 1.8 volts power supply provided by the system for U2402. Step 2. CPU will send a 32K clock signal and a reset signal to the touchscreen controller IC U2401. Step 3. CPU will send chip selecting signal and clock signals to U2401 via SPI bus, and then drivers. Step 4. LCD will send synchronizing signals to U2401. Once the 4 steps are completed, basic working condition of the touch circuit is prepared. Now let's move to data transmission and control signals of touch circuit. Step 1. By means of I2C bus, U2401 will get U2402 into power on self-test process and perform as function controller. Once U2402 succeeds in the process, U2401 will send clock enable signals and driving signals of touchscreen driving lines to U2402. With these signals being received, U2402 will then get to work. Step 2. U2402 will form a boost circuit with L2401, C2404, C2438, and C2407, plus 5.7 volts and minus 5.7 volts, the 2 rails of voltage that are outputted from Display Boost IC will then be boosted to plus 14 volts and minus 14 volts, respectively, by the boost circuit. The 2 rails of voltage are then processed by U2402 and outputted to the touchscreen as plus 13.5 volts and minus 12 volts. Step 3. U2402 sends control signals to touchscreen via pin F8. Step 4. U2402 sends driving signals of the 24 routes of driving lines to the touchscreen. Step 5. When the screen is being touched with fingers, it will transmit information of the sensing current to U2402 by means of the 12 routes of touching sensing lines. Tips: failure of driving lines or sensor lines will result in partially unresponsive issue of the screen. Step 6. With the info being processed and sent to U2401 by U2402, U2401 will calculate the specific touch position and explain corresponding action of the touch position according to the information received. Step 7. U2401 will then send an interrupt signal to CPU and inform CPU that there is touchscreen task waiting to be processed. Touch info processed is also transmitted to CPU via SPI bus. Once the info is received, CPU will operate correspondingly. With these steps being completed successfully, touch functionality of the touchscreen is finally fulfilled. Now let's move to detecting and repairing of iPhone 6 touch circuit. First, replace the screen, power on and test. Confirm whether abnormal touch functionality is caused by screen fault. Then, run cosmetic inspection of the logic board and check whether touch circuit relevant area is normal. If nothing goes wrong, run diode mode measurement of pins on J2401. If the measured value of one specific pin is abnormal, then check relevant circuit of the pin. If the measured value of all pins is normal, then treat with specific method based on the fault. 1. Touch screen partially unresponsive. The fault is usually caused by rare failure of touchscreen driving lines or sensing lines. Since the diode mode value of pins on J2401 is normal, we need to run cosmetic inspection of coupling capacitors on such two cumulars in 0 to 11 relevant rails and check whether there are parts missing. If anything goes wrong, then replace the abnormal coupling capacitor. If nothing goes wrong, then replace touchscreen driving IC U2402. If the problem is unresolved, then replace U2401. No touch. Check whether plus 13.5 volts voltage and minus 12 volts voltage of J2401 are normal. Test points C2440 plus 13.5 volts, C2440 minus 12 volts. If anything goes wrong, then check test points listed below. C2414 plus 5.7 volts, C2409 minus 5.7 volts, C2402 5.1 volts, C2403 1.8 volts, C2415 1.8 volts, C2438 plus 14 volts, C2407 minus 14 volts, R2420 1.8 volts, R2421 1.8 volts. If the measured voltage of one specific component is abnormal, then check relevant circuit of the component. If the measured voltage of all components is normal, then check touch driving IC and touch control IC in turn. Here are detailed steps of the checking process. Detach the IC from the board first, and run diode mode measurement of corresponding bonding pad. If the measured value of all bonding pads is normal, then replace the IC. If the measured value of one specific bonding pad is abnormal, then check relevant circuit of the pad. Tips: for failure of rails related to synchronizing signals from screen, its diode mode value of relevant test points changes slightly. That variation of it is hard to be measured. We can simply connect pin 1 and pin 6 of U2403. If the synchronizing signal is back to normal, then we can confirm that the fault is related to U2403. If the problem still remains, then run diode mode measurement of pin M1 on U2402. If the measured value is abnormal, then replace U2402. Common fault components of the touch circuit. Damage of display boost IC U1501 can result in touchscreen not working issue of the phone. Damage of touch driving IC U2402 can result in touchscreen not working issue of the phone or partially unresponsive of the screen. Damage of J2401 can result in touchscreen not working issue of the phone or partially unresponsive of the screen. And this is our detailed explanation of how iPhone 6 touch circuit works. Feel free to visit our official website www.rivatechnology.com. See you next course.